Hey, strangers. Welcome to another episode of The Strange Sessions. As always, I am Kurt, and I am joined once again by my lovely co-host, Krista. And today we have making his fourth appearance on the show, I think fourth.
Sounds right.
Is my lovely brother, Kory Konecny.
Ooh, I got a lovely.
You got a lovely.
Welcome, Kory.
Welcome
back.
Thank you.
Welcome to, I think you're our first guest in the Strange Cellar.
Yes,
Well,
he is.
And you approve?
I do approve.
Good.
He's a stranger favorite. He always gets really good feedback when
He
he's on
does.
the
He
show.
gets super good feedback when he's on the show.
You would think after the fourth time I'd be a little less nervous all the time, but
Like
Yeah,
I said,
give it
had
5 minutes.
I drank a lot of beer those first couple episodes we did because I was so nervous. You know, so it takes a little while.
Well, and it's different because you're not just coming on to chat. You're coming on to do part of
Do
the
a
show.
story.
Like he showed up with
Yeah.
a story.
Yeah.
It's a different, ball
Yep.
game when you're running part of the show.
Yeah.
I was afraid that you guys are going to be like disappointed in what I pick or what I choose to do.
No,
so-
because
No.
you're not so much like a paranormal guy. You like the
No.
true crime stuff.
Yeah.
And we
Which
like
I love,
we like the
yeah.
true crime stuff too.
Totally.
It's just we maybe need to do more true crime stuff. Missing people. I mean, yours does have
Yeah.
like an unanswered question.
If I would be on here for ghosts or
You would
UFOs,
be
I'd be like, no,
you'd be
it's
like,
all
no,
fake.
it's all-
It's BS. It's nothing.
Be a
So,
real bummer of a show.
yeah, the
Okay,
dumb
we
kid.
poo-poo on stuff too that
We
we,
do.
normally would, totally
We
believe
do.
in.
Do we have any weather talk? It's
Well, it's dark and dismal today.
just like
It snowed a couple days
it
ago.
did snow a couple days ago, but
now
then it
it's
melted
like
quick.
going to be 50s or 60s today. So
I've had all sorts
spring
of
in
issues
Wisconsin.
lately. Stress issues. Had a panic attack at work. Took a couple days off. This was a rough week. My apartment complex was on fire last night, so I got very little sleep. So, yeah.
But
So
you're here.
Thank God Kory is here to
Yeah,
do
well,
this one.
I'm just thankful nothing happened to your apartment or you. So
Yeah, I don't know how bad the fire was. It was in one of the apartments, but it's like, do I got to pack up Narnia, my cat?
So what time when did this happen?
Like 1 o'clock.
In the morning?
Yeah. Like I heard a beeping noise and I thought it was like something in my living room. So I went out there and there was nothing there and I heard it coming from the hallway and I'm like, well, I don't smell smoke. So it's not a fire. So I went back to bed and like half an hour later, I just happened to wake up. Something might have woke me up, but I'm laying in bed, like looking at my ceiling by my drapes. And all of a sudden it got super bright. And I was like, what's going on? And I went and looked and there must've been like 5 fire trucks outside my apartment and the firemen were coming in the door and I didn't know what to do. I got dressed, obviously.
Yeah.
But
you didn't show up in your whitey tighty.
no, I didn't. And I just sat in my apartment. I'm like, do I got to pack up Narnia? What do I need to?
Right.
I was starting to gather stuff I thought I would need if it was burning down, but they never even came up to my door. And then I was watching, and then after like 15, 20 minutes, they shut everything off and left. But my building smells like smoke really bad now.
So you didn't see like the fire hoses or anything? Like they weren't
No.
actively doing anything when you saw them?
No, they were all standing on the sidewalk, like looking at the
At that point
apartment.
it was over already.
Yeah,
Maybe
Yeah.
it was
yeah.
something
So I
small.
probably fell asleep during the actual fire segment. I don't know. So
Being woken up in the middle of the night by anything
Yeah.
is just jarring
because you're
and
so vulnerable,
unsettling, but
I usually sleep in
gosh.
more information than our listeners need, but I usually sleep in a t-shirt and just my underwear,
Yeah.
and not my lucky podcasting underwear. That's just for podcasting
Okay.
days.
Like I said, somebody's meth lab probably went up
Oh, probably.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Knowing that,
or somebody
knowing
fell asleep smoking a little something.
yeah, knowing the complex I live in, I would not be surprised. Nikki that listens, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it's been a day. It's been a week. It's been a month. This year has sucked. Anyway.
Wow. Well, I did a tarot reading this morning that was supposed to be just a general for myself. I haven't done it in a week. Usually I do it every day. And the card I pulled did not pertain to anything I'm dealing with. And I thought because you're coming here today, it pertained to you because
Yeah.
it was about like the struggle you're dealing with right now financially and with your job is
Yeah.
coming to an end. And there's probably a new job coming in your future or someone's going to offer to help you financially. So I felt like that was very specific to
I
what
hope
you're
so.
going through
I
right
did say
now.
you could move into the basement.
Yeah,
So maybe
could
that-
move it in Kory's basement.
Nice. You
So
could be a basement dweller.
I did make an appointment to talk to, because we get so many free counseling sessions
Yeah.
for work. So I did make an appointment to talk to a counselor. So we're going to see how that goes. But like everybody that knows me says it's time I need to go on anti-anxiety medication. So we'll see how that goes.
Anxiety sucks.
Anyway, enough of Kurt's problems.
Kurt's Corner.
Kurt's Corner. Shout outs to our 2 new strangers since last time. To only
That's
2.
it?
Yep, we're packing it in. We're done. Nobody cares anymore about us.
This is our last show.
Shout outs to John Thomas and William Doster. Thank you guys so much for joining The Strangers. And housekeeping, before we forget, I just want to say the next episode is going to be a catch-up episode. We have
nothing but ketchup.
nothing but it's going to be ketchup talk.
Spooky ketchup.
Tomatoes
Hunts,
everywhere.
Heinz, yeah.
Bigfoot holding a
Big-
ketchup bottle.
Holding a ketchup bottle. But we have a bunch of packages from listeners we want to open. And
Voicemails, stories.
we think this episode might go a little long, so we're going to just do that all next episode. So if you sent us one of these packages, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to open that next episode. We're going to play some voicemails we got. We're going to probably read some emails we got. I'm probably going to bring up some stuff that I meant to talk about episodes ago but forgot.
Perfect.
And I do have 2 short stories we could also do
Sweet.
that Crazy Days and Nights website I go to. That's like a gossip blind website where it's just like celebrity gossip. But every now and then they have something like interesting. So
Okay.
I'm going to talk about 2 of those stories, and it'll just be a nice laid back episode.
Nice.
So what other housekeeping? We also want to say that we are going to put a poll out there, and we want to know.
I immediately forgot to mention
I know.
this.
I know. That's why I'm glad I did.
Terrible at this.
We've gotten a couple letters and stuff and feedback from people.
Really nice feedback.
Yeah, nice feedback. Super nice feedback about not really liking the taste test segment and the titillating 20.
Yeah.
You know, so we might put a poll out there about just jumping right into the episode at the start and then saving all that stuff for the end of the episode.
But having said that, if you're just joining us for the first time, check your show notes because there is a timestamp in there
Yes.
for when the actual topic is going to start.
Yeah.
So we won't be offended. And actually, we won't even know if you
no,
fast forward to that
it's
part.
hard because some people don't like the titillating 20 and the taste test.
Some people love it.
And some people only listen to that.
Yeah.
So it's like, what can we do that would please everybody?
I think moving it to the end actually makes sense. And
And then maybe putting a timestamp for what time the
Could
taste
be.
test.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean,
But we're
we
gonna-
could be losing quality strangers
Yeah.
who are turned off by that.
That's probably why we only got 2 new ones this week. But we'll discuss this in the Strangers Facebook group.
Corey, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I do the same thing on like YouTube videos where I look to see what either the stories are, and then I look at the timestamp. And if I don't like the first story, I'll skip to the timestamp. But it's been, was it 5 seasons, 4 years now? And
Yeah.
Right.
I know you guys have always been like, if people don't like the way we do it, then
I know.
Don't
bleep
listen.
them.
Yeah.
And
But-
maybe it is just saying what time to check the timestamp. We don't
Yeah.
say that enough. We
We
say it
don't-
maybe
yeah,
once
we-
a season.
Yeah, I have it down at the bottom of like the episode topic, whatever the episode description is. So maybe we'll start saying that more just to check what time the actual episode starts.
Yeah.
That's probably why you only had 2 new
Yeah, I'm sure it
listeners,
is.
was they heard the last podcast. They heard I was going to be on.
Oh, stop.
Whatever.
Did we
Whatever.
mention that in the last episode? I don't remember.
Yeah, you said I was going to be on. So
No, you are one of the
Your
preferred
fan
regulars.
favorite. Yep.
Recurring character. I think there was in the voicemail say something about a recurring character. So yeah, you're one of the favorite recurring characters.
For sure.
Do we have any other housekeeping?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Oh, yes, we do.
Krista put her finger
So
up in the
bad
air.
at
She's like, "Yes, we do."
It's like I've never done this before. So, great news. Our TeePublic store is back up and running. I did take one of the t-shirts off of there. It's the Toynbee tile one because
Yeah.
it's too special. I don't want it on that website. I'm sorry. But my friend I'm working with is creating the t-shirts. His family owns like a merchandise store. And I got a quote from him. I kind of have a preliminary order in. And side note, the Crescent Hotel is a huge customer of theirs, and that's like allegedly one of the most haunted hotels in the U.S. So
That's
I thought that
awesome.
was an interesting
Wow.
tie-in. So watch for that. But yeah, you can go out to TeePublic right now and order a T-shirt if you want.
Yes.
But, until
We
they
still-
shut us
we
down.
still- we
again.
still don't know what they shut us down for.
No,
really.
they still haven't given me an explanation, but they
I
said
think it's the government.
upon
Government
further
shut
review,
us. Government shut it down.
Sure.
We're too close to the truth.
Yep, that's it.
I did see somebody mention they thought it might be something automatic, where
Yeah.
like it was done by like a bot.
AI.
And then it just never let you know as to why.
It could be.
But
I never thought of that until they mentioned that. It could be something got
Yeah.
flagged. I don't know. I suspect it might have been the Toynbee tile.
But that's not
But I don't
it's not
know
a registered.
why.
It's not a copyrighted
Right.
image.
And it's original art that someone made
Yes.
specifically for us with our names in it. So I don't know.
Maybe that's what the bot does. It scans the internet,
internet
to see, a
if
picture, and then
something
it saw
picture
these
pops up. That's
Toynbee
possible.
tiles. Yeah.
It could be. I don't know. I'm going to stop trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then we
Exactly.
even got the money from the sales that we did make.
Yeah.
They did give us that money. So
Yeah, which is
I'm
awesome.
happy about that.
So cool.
All right, taste test?
Anything else?
I don't think so.
It'll be in the catch-up episode, next episode, if we did forget something.
Yep. Or not, because nobody's taking notes on anything.
So we are going to let's do this taste test one from last week that we're not sure if this has hazelnuts in it or not.
I think it does.
I can't eat hazelnuts. These two can, so I'm sitting this one out. This one is for Kory and
Oh, should I take a picture? Quick?
Krista.
I'm going to take a picture of Kory holding it.
Kory and creepy Krista.
I thought I was, what's my name? What's my biker name?
Jezebel.
Jezebel, that's right. And Dirty Kurt.
Dirty Kurt. Jezebel.
Sure, why not? They kind of look like nerds.
Dirty Kurt.
You know, like a box.
That's what it looks like. Is
in.
like, oh, I wanted Kory to try those ones that we had that were like.
Oh, they're in here.
That were like weirdly salty.
Yeah.
It looks like jelly beans. I can't imagine there'd be hazelnut.
No, but you guys tried them anyway, just in case.
All right.
The last thing Kurt needs is to go into like
Yeah, that
what
would
is that
be
called?
just
Anaphylactic shock.
That would just be the topper to this last week or
That's
two.
so cute.
Yeah, I grabbed what looks to be a yellow and a pink jelly bean.
Gomp. It's called Gomp. Okay. Oh, they do just look like jelly beans. Why would there be hazelnuts in here?
It probably isn't.
Okay.
We're just gonna take the safe route out.
Whoa. Hold on.
I wonder now
Okay.
I wonder if it's my allergies that are bad because it's like I'm weirdly stuffed up and
Yeah, could be.
Everyone have
Just
we both
smell
smell
them.
at the same time.
There's no smell. Okay, ready?
Which one you got? Yellow?
I'm doing a pink.
I'll do a yellow.
Okay. I mean, it
It's
tastes like a jelly bean.
is it good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me one.
I don't know why you couldn't eat this.
Give me one. I'm gonna try it.
Let me taste the yellow. Well, you just tasted the yellow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the yellow.
The pink is really good.
Yellow is like a more citrusy. I didn't try the pink yet, but
How'd you open that?
Yeah, the yellow is citrusy. It's good. The pink is more like. It kind of reminds me of like the pink flavor of Starburst.
Yeah. I'm excited to try this.
Oh, I could have given you this. It's
Nope,
open.
I'm excited to try these. I'll take one of each. Oh,
yeah, I would say the yellow is citrusy. The red or pink is more rose, champagne-ish.
Yeah,
it's more of
a subtle fruity.
yeah.
It's good though.
It's not like a. Those are good.
They're really good. I don't know why there would be hazelnuts in this.
More of a subtle jelly bean flavor.
I mean, I read her letter a couple times, thinking, well, I'm gonna try to take some candy.
If I die, just let me go.
Oh, stop! I'm gonna give you mouth to mouth,
Put you in your
So-
whether you
Sweet.
like it or not.
At least we didn't have fishy things.
That's true.
Try those knots.
Yeah. That.
That's the one that I was strangely attracted to because
Are they the ones that have the licorice flavor too?
they're I think they're like a licorice flavor, but they're like it's salty. It's like weirdly salty.
Eric, he's from, is he from Norway?
I think so.
He was saying there's different flavors.
Definitely black licorice.
Yeah. But
Are you
do you get
getting
like
the
a crazy
salt, or is that
saltiness
just-
too?
Or is that just
It
us?
takes a minute to kick in, I think. That was it, right? That was what we thought was salty?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah,
Are you going to try an Idaho Spud?
Yeah, I'll try one.
Okay.
Yeah, the first taste is black licorice,
And then it's like
and then
salty.
once you start chewing, it's
salty.
salty,
Okay.
but not.
Not badly
Overpowering,
salty,
yeah.
but just like
I like
sometimes
salty
like
with my
caramel
sweet.
sea salt stuff
Yeah,
can be.
That's good stuff. I brought these
good.
to my
Yeah.
my teammates because we had a
Did you?
crafty day. They didn't try them in front of me, but everybody took one home. So I should have gotten some
They're
feedback.
good though. The Idaho Spuds are good.
Yeah, we're only 15 minutes in, so
Okay.
if you want to try the Idaho
Try
Spud,
the Idaho
I think
Spud.
you should.
Did you see the back where it says it's a sugar confectionery with licorice, salty licorice,
Oh,
and peppermint flavor?
no,
Who reads package?
we didn't read that package. Okay, then
All right.
Not sure
I
what
guess that
salty
answers
licorice is, but
salty licorice. I feel like it's pretty
I like those.
self-explanatory.
cleanse my palate.
Cleanse his palate with his energy drink.
With a fruity drink.
The watermelon monster.
Do you like coconut, Kory?
I do.
Okay.
It's weird you're both looking at me.
We're waiting with bated breath.
What do you think?
Does it remind you of a moon pie a
It's
little
like
bit?
the inner consistency
Mm-hmm.
is like a moon pie.
Yeah, it's like a dark chocolate with like a moon pie,
Pie
kind
middle.
of flavor, like a marshmallow.
And then the coconut on the outside is sort of like brings in a almond joy feel to
Yeah,
it.
like a
It's
mouthfeel.
an interesting hybrid.
Yeah, it is.
I thought they were really good.
So did I.
different. It's, not often we get candy that's so unique.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what that inside reminds me of.
It reminds me a little bit of a Three Musketeers, but
Yeah.
a little spongier, a little more marshmallowier.
Yeah, I know that they make
Word,
those
but-
flavored marshmallows, and I think that when kids were younger, they like to have the flavored marshmallows, and I think like a chocolate marshmallow. That's what it reminds me of. Very good.
I hate marshmallows, and I hate even worse are flavored marshmallows.
You also
I
used
love
to hate,
marshmallows,
Cool
but-
Ranch Doritos.
I did used to hate. No, I didn't hate them. It's that I had a taste aversion to them because I don't know if we ever told that story on here that when I was like a young kid, I want to say like 10, 11, I was sick with the flu, but I ate like a half a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos and I threw up all day. And I had not touched them
no.
since then. I would not. I'd get like physically sick if I saw like a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos.
It's funny how that works, right?
And then like 5 years ago, maybe,
Yeah.
I was over by Kory and Nicole and the kids for Thanksgiving, and just for a joke, they put the bag in the middle of the table of Cool Ranch Doritos. So finally, I'm like,
Corey
what-
looks very proud.
finally, I'm like, what the hell? And I went in and got one, and I'm like, oh my god, these are so good.
They
So
are
now I'm
good.
back hooked on Cool Ranch Doritos
funny.
after not eating them for 30 years,
Yeah. I think
35 plus
I
years.
think everybody has something like that. Mine is potato pancakes.
Yeah, you can't eat potato
No,
pancakes
just
because
the
you
smell of them frying
Yum.
Yeah,
makes me
'cause-
nauseous.
you got sick on
Mine
them.
is pickles.
I'm still like that with sour cream and onion Pringles because I got sick on those.
Yeah.
The
Did I tell you why I can't eat pickles? Why I don't like to eat pickles?
No, I didn't know you didn't like to eat pickles.
Oh, yeah, they're disgusting.
You-
No kidding.
There's an
All the
awful lot of
pickle stuff
pickle
that
stuff on
everybody
this
gives
table.
us, I'm horrified by it. I worked in a pickle factory when I was kind of out of high school, just very temporarily, because apparently the smell of warm dill pickles and conveyor belts shooting cucumbers past you is not a good combination. I was nauseated like all day.
Oh, I
every
guess
day
I
that
could
worked
see. I guess I
there.
could imagine that.
So now just the smell takes me back there. And yeah, I can eat a pickle once in a while under perfect conditions.
I thought you loved pickles.
No, I don't. I do not like pickles.
And yet pickles is our thing.
I don't like anything pickled. Nothing. It's weird.
Pickled eggs. I
Ugh.
love pickled eggs.
Pickled eggs. Mm.
No, hard-boiled eggs. Yes, not pickled eggs.
It's a vinegar flavored hard boiled egg.
I know.
She just gave
The
me such
vinegar
a she gave me
flavor.
such a dirty look.
How dare you insult me with your pickled eggs?
Are we ready to jump into the main topic?
I think we are, and we're a couple minutes ahead of schedule. So
Kory,
Yes.
would you like to go first?
Sure. Do we want to do anything before that? We're good.
I think we're good.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Do we have any? Are we forgetting a segment?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Not this time. Corey will keep us on task.
The Elisa Lam thing, is that later?
The Elisa Lam thing we'll do towards the end
Sure. Mine will be shorter. Do you
Yeah.
want me to go first?
No, that's fine. I just
Okay.
didn't know if there didn't.
because I didn't
No.
watch the Elisa Lam documentary that you guys watched, so you guys
Okay.
can talk about that. So yeah, Kory is going to do what's your topic?
My topic is the Lindbergh baby kidnapping.
Oh, that's right. You did tell me you was going to do this. Exciting.
Yeah,
Nice.
I know a little bit about it, but I
too.
don't really know a lot about it.
Just what I've seen kind of in passing documentaries, etc.
Yeah, and, I mean, normally I don't like to do anything that old. You're looking at 90 years ago almost, but it's kind of getting like a resurgence now that you're getting close to that 100-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because anything from like the 30s or 20s, I mean, it's such a different lifestyle and such a different environment, and
Different time.
to be able to try to apply stuff from the current, like even like current forensics to stuff that was going on in the 30s is just night and day.
Mm-hmm.
So usually I try to avoid it, but this one is obviously they referred to it as the crime of the century, so it's definitely got some interesting parts to it. So, all right, I'll go ahead. A little backstory for those that don't know. Charles Lindbergh started out as an airmail pilot, and he was also a military officer. In 1927, at the age of 25, he was the first person to solo the nonstop transatlantic flight from New York to Paris. 7 other people had tried this feat. 3 actually died before he was able to do it. His famous aircraft was known as the...
Spirit of St. Louis.
That's it. Spirit of St. Louis.
I did not know that.
His flight took 33 and a half hours and covered 3,600 miles.
Dang.
So then the question has always been, like, did he have a jar? Or was he wearing some
There was
kind
no
of...
soda bottle.
nothing like that.
hanging his butt out the plane window.
There we go. He won something called the Orteig Prize, of which was $25,000, which back then was quite an amount of money. He was awarded...
I'd still be happy with 25,000.
Yeah, current money. He was awarded the Medal of Honor and the Distinguished Flying Cross. And after this and his distinguished military career, he was as close as you could get to what we would call a worldwide celebrity. He married Anne Morrow, who was the daughter of an ambassador. The ambassador's name was Dwight Morrow. They married in 1929. They had 6 children, the first of which was Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr., born in 1932, and they had an estate called Highfields in East Amwell, New Jersey. And you know it's got to be big when you have a name for it.
Right.
Yeah.
On March 1st, 1932, about 7:30 to 8 p.m., Anne was taking a bath and Charles was in the library. The Lindberghs' live-in maid, Betty Gow, went to check on Charles Jr. in his second-floor bedroom. She ran down and told Mr. Lindbergh that the baby was not in the room. They raced to the room and discovered the ransom note and no baby. Mr. Lindbergh then grabbed a gun, grabbed his butler, and went to look around the yard. Under the window to the room, they noticed tracks, of which were never photographed or measured, a ladder, which was homemade and built in 3 pieces, and a baby blanket. The local police, state police, and his attorney were immediately notified.
Seems pretty obvious what happened there.
Yeah.
It's easy to underestimate just how famous and celebrated this family was. They may have been the most famous family in the world at that point. Granted, it was 1932, but it would be similar to having the child of, say, Bill Gates, Michael Jordan, or Neil Armstrong, all in their primes, be kidnapped.
I thought you were going to say the Kardashians.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, that's kind of
that's
close.
not my cup of tea.
No, it's
but
not
yeah,
my
that's
cup of
as
tea.
They're
close.
very famous.
That's
Yeah.
as close as maybe to what you'd get currently.
Yeah. Where it would be on the news constantly.
Yes.
If something like that happened here.
We don't really celebrate military personnel or people who break records like that today. So there really is no apples to apples comparison. I mean, your Kardashian reference is probably as close to, those that are up on popular culture.
Yeah.
To make a point about how popular this family was, it is said that Al Capone himself called the kidnapping the most outrageous thing I've ever heard of, quote unquote,
Wow.
and offered $10,000 for information leading to the return of the child.
Really?
You don't want
Yes.
Al Capone mad at you.
Interesting.
Even he said it was
Yeah.
the most outrageous thing I've ever heard of.
Wow.
So as the police arrive, they truly had little to work with. They believe that 1 or more people came to the house with a crude homemade ladder, and the ladder, again, was 3 pieces, and it definitely took some engineering to make, and it appeared to be broken on the middle section side rail. So if you think about it, it was 3 sections, and it was connected by a rail, like a post that goes through it
Yeah.
to make sure that they don't fall, and the middle section side rail, the left or right side, were broken.
Why did they make a ladder? Did they not have their own ladder?
I think in 1932 they didn't
You
have.
could just go to
you just
True
couldn't
Value.
Go
You could go to
by-
True Value
It's,
or Fleet
it's
Farm
possible you could, but to get to the second floor, I don't think that they
Yeah, that's
made
true.
something.
You might need like a larger
I don't know when
ladder.
extension ladders were mass produced.
Well, and that was a wooden ladder, I'm sure.
Yes, wood.
Maybe they didn't want to raise suspicions by going out
Somewhere
and
in-
buying a ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they assumed that they entered the room through the window and took Charles Jr., put the ransom note on the sill, went back down, and drove off. No one in the house heard anything. The police looked for fingerprints on the ladder and ransom note, but didn't find any. So they assumed the kidnappers were wearing gloves. And also forensics in the 30s, like we said, wasn't like it is now, where
Right.
they were able to do all these casts and pictures and molds. And
Bring their CSI light.
yeah.
They're blue or black
Their
light.
black light.
Along with the police, well-connected and well-intentioned people arrived at the Lindbergh estate. Military colonels offered their aid, although only one had any law enforcement experience. His name was Herbert Norman Schwarzkopf. If that name sounds familiar,
Was that related?
that would be his father. The
Wow,
General
really? General
Stormin
Schwarzkopf?
Norman
Yeah, Stormin
Schwarzkopf.
Norman Schwarzkopf?
Yeah, that was his
Really?
father.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
He was the superintendent of the New Jersey State Police. The other colonels were Henry Skillman Breckinridge. He was a Wall Street lawyer as well. And William J. Donovan, who was a hero of the First World War, who later had the office of the Strategic Services, which was the forerunner to the CIA.
Nice.
Lindbergh and these men speculated that the kidnapping was perpetrated by organized crime figures. At this time, Charles Lindbergh used his influence to control the direction of the investigation. He wanted to negotiate with the kidnappers with no police interference, and he wanted no arrests until the ransom was paid and his baby was safe.
That makes sense. I
Right.
mean,
His number one priority is
yeah.
whatever we have to do to get my kid back.
And they say that kidnapping of family members, like young children, was a big thing in the early 30s
Like
and
it
20s.
was common?
It was common because
Okay.
that was an easy way to get quick money.
Oh, sure. Was it a thing for the FBI to say we don't negotiate with kidnappers?
Probably
back
not
then?
back then.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because now or terrorists, they won't negotiate with terrorists. But
Yeah, kidnapping, it sounds like it was something fairly common, even like in the Western time, where somebody would take somebody's relative and say, unless you give me $10,000, and then they would release them and they'd have the $10,000. So the ransom note is an interesting and huge clue. I'm going to read it, and I want to specify every word because it really does pertain a lot to the rest of the investigation. It reads, "Dear Sir, ! Have $50.000 so $50,000, but 000 and then the $, ready, REDY, $25.000 in $20 bills, $15,000 in $10 bills, and $10,000 in $5 bills. After 2/4 days, we will inform you were, WERE instead of where, we will inform you were to deliver the money, MONY. So money instead of money. We warn you for making anything public.
Anything.
ANYDING. Anything
public.
Or for notify the police the child is in good care. GUT. Indication, spelled right.
wow,
For all letters are signature and 3 holes. Holes. HOLS. $50,000, again, $50,000 in $1932. Well, that was the end of it with the signature and 3 holes.
Yeah.
$50,000 in $1932 is about $1 million in 2021 money.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the misspelled and obviously interesting ransom note.
I'm sure you're going to get into analyzing
Yes.
this note because I have thoughts.
But then it's like they spell that one word good. But they say that what they think that like the Zodiac and other people that leave like notes do that purposely to make it look like they can't spell when they can.
This seems more like someone whose first language is not English.
Good made me think of German.
Ding, ding, ding.
Okay. Well, just like the way it's worded, the grammar is wrong. It's
Yeah.
not just the spelling; the grammar is indicative of another language.
Yep.
Krista is leading in the right direction. So the signature that they talk about is a reference to the holes that are on the ransom note.
So are they saying that
There's
if they're
actual holes?
if they're going to communicate with you, you're going to know it's theirs because it's going to have a signature and it's going to have holes punched in it, like
Correct.
3 holes punched in
Okay.
it. Okay.
The signature there, instead of saying like, let me think, what was the PTSD victory? Is that what it was for the John Benet Ramsey? Yeah,
Yeah.
It was something along those lines.
Yeah.
That was like their signature.
Yeah. So this is the way you would know it was from
Yep.
these
Okay.
people.
This one is 2 interconnected blue circles with the red circle in the middle of it. So you kind of think of putting 2 blue circles together. There will be a kind of hole in the middle that's filled with a red mark.
And that was like their sign.
Okay.
Yep. And then there's a hole punched through the red circle
That seems pretty elaborate.
and on each side of it.
Yeah.
So the Lindberghs then broadcast a message to the kidnappers on NBC radio promising to keep confidential and all the arrangements are okay, meaning that they're ready to go. On March 6, 1932, so 5 days later, 2 new ransom letters arrived by mail, one to the Lindbergh home and one to Breckenridge. He was that Wall Street lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
The letters were postmarked March 4th from Brooklyn, and it did carry the signature or the red and blue marks. The ransom had now been raised to $70,000, and the note told the Lindberghs that John Condon should be the intermediary between the Lindberghs and the kidnappers. Instructions specified the size of a box to make that should hold the money and warned that the family should not contact the police again. So now we get to John Condon.
I was just going to say,
Yep.
Okay.
John F. Condon was a well-known Bronx personality and retired teacher. Condon idolized Lindbergh, and when he heard of the kidnapping, he put an ad in the paper asking to be the intermediary. The kidnappers must have seen this ad. Lindbergh was asked to agree to this, and even without knowing Condon at all, he did agree. Condon also received a letter reportedly written by the kidnappers a little while later, authorizing Condon to be the intermediary with Lindbergh. So following the kidnapper's latest instructions, Condon placed a classified ad in the New York American reading, quote, "Money is ready, comma, Jafsey."
What?
Apparently,
Jafsey?
Jafsey was like his nickname.
Okay.
I don't think it was something they agreed on beforehand. I think
Yeah.
it's just that was what his
Yeah.
was referred to. Well, Condon then waited for further instructions from the culprits. At 8:30 on March 12th, the doorbell rang at Condon's house. A man said that he was given a letter and asked to drop it off at this address. The man that gave the letter was described as being in a brown overcoat and a brown felt hat.
That was totally one of the guys.
Maybe. A meeting between Condon and a representative of the kidnappers was scheduled for late one evening at Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. According to Condon, the man sounded foreign, but stayed in the shadows during the conversation and also had a handkerchief over his nose and mouth, and Condon was thus unable to get a close look at his face. The man said his name was John, and he related this story. He was a Scandinavian sailor, part of a gang of 3 men and 2 women. The baby was being held on a boat unharmed, but would be returned only for the ransom. The man told Condon that he was in fear that he might burn. Condon asked what he was talking about, and the mystery man said, "Would I burn if the baby is dead?" Condon alarmingly asked what he meant by that again, at which point the mystery man changed his tune and said, "The baby's not dead. Tell the colonel not to worry, the baby is all right. Tell Colonel Lindbergh the baby is on a boat." And when Condon expressed doubt that the baby was all right, John actually did say he had the baby, promised some proof, and the kidnappers would soon return the baby's sleeping suit. So on March 16th, 1932, Condon did receive the toddler's sleeping suit by mail and a 7th ransom note.
That doesn't mean the baby's alive.
Right. Did he have an accent? Did
They said,
say
yeah, he said that he had a foreign accent.
Okay.
He said he couldn't put his finger on it, but I think it's implied that it was probably German.
Right.
After Lindbergh identified the sleeping suit as being from Charles Jr., Condon placed a new ad in the paper saying, quote, "The money is ready, no cops, no Secret Service, I come alone like last time." After some more ransom note exchanges back and forth, so on April 1st, Condon received a letter saying it was time for the ransom to be delivered. All in all, 15 ransom letters were exchanged.
Wow.
So on April 2nd, Condon was given a note by the intermediary, an unknown cab driver. Condon met John again and told him that they had been able to raise only $50,000. The man accepted the money and gave Condon a note saying that the child was in the care of 2 innocent women on a boat called the Nellie. And he gave directions to an area near Martha's Vineyard, which I think is off Boston.
I think so. It's like in that area.
Yeah. At dawn, Lindbergh was up in his plane, scouring the area looking for the Nellie to no avail. He never found it, and no more communications with the kidnappers was ever made. The ransom was packaged in a wooden box that was custom-made in the hope it could be later identified. So when the IRS officials and authorities put together the ransom money, they used gold certificates, which is like paper money, but on the left side, instead of the green seal, there's a gold seal. I think that's what they used to refer to as going off the gold standard. If you ever remember that.
Yep.
I think it was something along the lines they used the backing of the paper money as to how much gold they had.
Yeah.
They were soon to get rid of the gold standard. They were going to be off it within a year or two, so they thought that this would be a good way to track the money. They also did take down the serial numbers, like they do for most ransoms.
Yeah.
And they sent that out to, at first, local businesses, and then eventually they sent it out nationwide. On May 12th, 1932, 2 months later, delivery truck driver Orville Wilson and his assistant William Allen pulled off to the side of a road about 4.5 miles south of the Lindbergh property. When Allen went into the grove of trees to
Urinate?
Exactly. Every body that has ever been found has been found by somebody who goes to pee. So, yep, he pulled over and went to the grove of trees to urinate like people always do. He discovered the decomposing body of a toddler.
Ugh.
The skull was badly fractured and the body decomposed. Having been chewed on by animals as well, it was a hasty burial. So they kind of threw him into a shallow grave.
Poor baby.
Betty Gow, the nanny, of the Lindberghs, was asked to identify the baby as the missing Charles Jr. because he had overlapping toes. Apparently it's like a genetic thing where I guess his first toe and his big toe could overlap, and that the baby was wearing a shirt that she had made or knitted.
Yeesh. Having to go in and look at that?
Yep. And then it appeared after that the child may have been killed near the day of, if not on, the night of the kidnapping by a blow to the head or the fall off a ladder.
Ugh.
So in June 1932, police began to suspect the crime had been perpetrated by someone in the Lindbergh's house or someone the Lindberghs knew. It was learned that on the day of the kidnapping that this was the first time the Lindberghs were actually at home on a Tuesday. The house was still being worked on that they were in, and they usually only stayed there on weekends, and they usually spent time at Ann's parents during the weekdays.
So they were usually never there Tuesday nights. So
yeah, it was weird that they were there.
Whoever
Knew
took
that they were going to be
Yep.
there.
So that's why they thought it might be an inside job. The first person that was a suspect was Violet Sharp, a British servant from Anne Morrow's parents' house, who had given contradictory information regarding her whereabouts on the night of the kidnapping. There was also some confusion over the name of her date, which was her alibi that night. It was reported that she appeared nervous and suspicious when questioned. She committed suicide on June 10th, 1932, by ingesting a silver polish that contained cyanide just before being questioned the fourth time. Her alibi was later confirmed.
Oh, come on.
And with pushing the woman so harshly and being depressed over the baby's death and the prying into her social life, it didn't take long to see her reason for committing suicide.
Oh, that sucks.
Wow.
Condon was also questioned by the police and his home searched, but nothing suggestive was found.
Drinking silver polish?
Ugh.
Yeesh.
So throughout the ensuing 2.5-year period, the number of ransom bills were spent throughout New York City. Detectives realized that many of the bills were being spent along the route of the Lexington Avenue subway, which connected the Bronx with the east side of Manhattan, especially to include the German-Austrian neighborhood of Yorkville. On November 27th, 1933, a cashier at Lowe's Theater remembered taking a gold certificate. On September 18th, 1934, a Manhattan bank teller noticed a gold certificate from the ransom. A New York license plate number 4U-13-41-New York was penciled in the bill's margin. That allowed it to be traced to a nearby gas station. The gas station manager had written down the license number because the customer was acting, quote, suspicious and was possibly, quote, a counterfeiter. He was driving a blue Dodge and sounded German. The license plate belonged to a car owned by 35-year-old carpenter Richard Hauptmann, an immigrant with a criminal record in Germany. Hauptmann was arrested the next morning driving in a blue Dodge.
A carpenter who may have known how to build a ladder, perhaps?
A German carpenter. So Hauptmann was arrested, interrogated, and beaten at least once through the following day and night.
Probably had it coming.
When he was arrested, he was carrying a single $20 gold certificate. When police searched his home, they found a considerable amount of additional evidence that may have linked him to the crime. They had found $14,000 of the ransom money in his garage,
Oh, that's a good sign.
Like the ransom money.
$1,830 hidden behind a board, and another $11,930 in a paint can by a window. So that's the $14,000 they found.
Wow.
Two different sections of it. A notebook contained a sketch of a construction of a ladder, similar to which was found at the Lindbergh home in March 1932. John Condon's telephone number, along with his address,
I mean, that's,
Oh, my God.
were discovered written on a closet wall in the house.
and they think possibly he didn't do it?
Correct.
How? I
We'll
mean,
get to
he's-
that.
Okay. Oh, I just got
Curd.
A key piece of evidence, a section of wood, was discovered in the attic of his home. After being examined by an expert, it was determined to be an exact match to the wood used in the construction of the ladder found at the scene of the crime. Hellman stated that the money and the other items had been left with him by a friend and former business partner, Isidore Fish. Fish had died on March 29, 1934, shortly after returning to Germany. Hellman stated he learned only after Fish's death and that the shoebox was left for him contained a considerable sum of money. He kept the money because he claimed that it was owed to him from a business debt that he and Fish had made. Hauptmann consistently denied any connection to the crime or knowledge that the money in his house was from the ransom. So one thing I added later was that Hauptmann wasn't a saint. Upon returning to Germany after World War I, he and a friend burglarized 3 homes. It was also rumored that he had burgled the mayor of his hometown by using a ladder to gain access to the second story. He served a 4-year sentence, and after his release, he stole some more stuff and was rearrested. He escaped from prison not too long later.
But I feel like there's a difference between burglarizing somebody and taking somebody's child.
I just love that you use the term burgled. Because that's how they would have said it back then.
Burgled.
Yep.
Hauptmann was indicted on September 24th, 1934 for extorting the $50,000 ransom from Charles Lindbergh. And on 2 weeks later, October 8th, he was indicted for the murder. I was going to say burgled. For the murder of Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr. The trial was held at the Hunterdon County Courthouse in Flemington, New Jersey, and was soon dubbed the trial of the century. The only possible trials that could vie for this distinction would be the Simpson trial and the Scopes trial.
Yep.
700 reporters, thousands of spectators, and hundreds of communication specialists overflowed the area of the courthouse. Celebrities showed up. They mentioned some celebrities, but they didn't I didn't know who they were.
Like,
So 1932, it's not like Al Jolson showed up or
Bob
something.
Hope, Al Jolson.
The celebrities showed up along with the inescapable vendors and pitchmen trying to make money by selling things like copies of the ladder, photos of Charles Lindbergh, and even obviously fake locks of the Lindbergh's baby's hair.
Come
God, that doesn't
on.
change much because that's
sick.
still kind of stuff you had happen with the O.J.
That's
Simpson.
just sick.
You know, you still had that merchandising and all that kind of stuff.
Like gloves. Did people sell a lot of gloves?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, but people are morbid.
The prosecution, led by Davis Willents, their main theory was that when Hauptmann tried to go back down the ladder with the baby, the added weight caused the side rails on the second section of the ladder to crack, which in turn left Hauptmann with either falling with the baby, causing its death, or dropping the baby while saving himself, again, causing the baby's death.
I'd like to think it happened that way and that he didn't intentionally murder the baby.
I don't think the baby was intentionally murdered. That's just my guess. That's just the way I feel, is that it was an accidental, because they wanted the money, you know, and
I don't think anybody's intention is to kill a child, especially a two-year-old.
But you know you're going to have an easier time getting the money given to you when you can prove the baby's alive.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they got the money.
Yeah.
Well, some of it. Or did they get all of it?
We'll get to that.
Oh.
Oh yeah, Curtin.
He's just curting everybody left and right.
Evidence against Hauptmann included the $20,000 of the ransom money found in his garage, and testimony alleging that his handwriting and spelling were similar to those of the ransom notes. 8 handwriting experts pointed out similarities between the ransom notes and Hauptmann's writing specimens. The defense called an expert to rebut this evidence, while 2 others had declined to testify. The latter 2 demanding $500 before even looking at the evidence.
Are you serious?
Yep.
That's shady.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff probably still goes on.
Oh, I'm
Just
sure it
never
probably
talked
still
about.
goes on.
The notes were dismissed by Lloyd Fisher, a member of Hauptmann's legal team. He also declined because of money. Other experts retained by the defense were never even called to testify. The state included photographs demonstrating that part of the wood from the ladder matched a plank from the attic's floor in Hauptmann's attic. The type of wood, the direction of tree growth and milling patterns, the inside and outside surfaces of the wood, and the grain on both sides were identical, and 4 oddly placed nail holes lined up with nail holes in the joists in Hauptmann's attic. And despite not having an obvious source of earned income, Hauptmann had bought a $400 radio, which is equivalent to $8,000 now, and him and his wife went on a trip to Germany. So the fact that he was pretty much unemployed, he still found a way to have some money.
Yeah.
Hauptmann was also identified as the man to whom the ransom money was delivered. Lindbergh said that it was Hauptmann's voice he heard near the cemetery that day. Other witnesses testified that it was Hauptmann who had spent some of the Lindbergh gold certificates, and that he had been seen in the area of the estate in East Amwell, New Jersey on the day of the kidnapping, and that he had been absent from work on the day of the ransom payment and quit his job 2 days later.
Jeez.
Hauptmann never sought out another job afterward, yet continued to live comfortably. When the prosecution rested its case, the defense, led by Edward Riley, opened up with a lengthy examination of Hauptmann. In his testimony, Hauptmann denied being guilty insisting that the box of gold certificates had been left to him by his friend Isidor Fisch, who had returned to Germany in December 1933 and died. Hauptmann said that he had one day found a shoebox left behind by Fisch, which Hauptmann had stored on the top shelf of his kitchen's broom closet. Later discovering the money, which he later found to be almost $40,000 worth, Hauptmann said that because Fisch owed him about $7,500 in business funds, Hauptmann kept the money and lived on it until January 1934 when he was arrested. The defense called Hauptmann's wife, Anna, to corroborate the Fisch story. On cross-examination, she admitted that while she hung her apron every day on the hook higher than the top shelf, she could not remember seeing any shoebox there. Later, rebuttal witnesses testified that Fisch could not have been at the scene of the crime, and he had no money for medical treatment, of which he died of tuberculosis later. Fisch's landlady testified that he could barely afford the $3.50 weekly rent of his room, and alibi witnesses were less than compelling and even in some cases disastrous to the defense. In his closing summation, Riley argued that the evidence against Hauptmann was entirely circumstantial because no reliable witness had placed Hauptmann at the scene of the crime, nor were his fingerprints found on the ladder, the ransom notes, or anywhere in the nursery. Deliberations began at 11:20 a.m. on February 13th, 1935, and at 10:28 that night, the jury had reached a decision, so less than 12 hours later. It was, quote, "We find the defendant, Bruno Richard Hauptmann, guilty of the murder in the first degree." Hauptmann was convicted and immediately sentenced to death. His attorneys appealed to the New Jersey Court of Appeals, which at the time was the state's highest court. The appeal was argued on June 29th, 1935. The appeal was rejected by a 7-1 vote. The lone dissent was New Jersey Governor Harold Hoffman, who believed it couldn't have been pulled off by one man alone. Hauptmann turned down a large offer from the Hearst newspaper for a confession and refused any last-minute offers to commute his sentence for the death penalty to life without parole in exchange for any confessions. Samuel Leibowitz, a defense attorney, visited Hauptmann 3 times trying to get him to confess. Hauptmann was electrocuted on April 3rd, 1936 at 8:44 p.m.
Yikes.
After his death, some reporters and independent investigators came up with numerous questions about the way in which the investigation had been run and the fairness of the trial, including witness tampering and planted evidence. Twice in the 1980s, Anna Hauptmann sued the state of New Jersey for unjust execution of her husband. The suits were dismissed on unknown grounds.
In what years?
Then twice in the 1980s.
In the 80s?
Yep.
How old was she then?
Dismissed. She continued fighting to clear his name until her death at the age of 95 in 1994.
Wow.
And the Lindbergh Law was passed by Congress the day after the kidnapping, which makes kidnapping a federal offense and a capital offense.
Wow.
Prior to the law being passed, kidnapping in the U.S. was a frequent and very profitable crime, especially targeting wealthy families. After the passing of the Lindbergh Law, kidnappings went down drastically.
So kidnapping is a capital offense?
Yes.
Wow.
So we get the theories. First one, obviously, Hauptmann did it. All the evidence we talked about, is it that open and shut?
I think there's a lot of evidence that he did it or was involved somehow.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me see if I can change your mind.
Challenge
Like the stuff with the
accepted.
attic, with the wood. Okay, go on.
So the second theory is, did someone else or a group of people do it? Was it Isidor Fisch, a group of people, including Hauptmann or not? During the trial, the defense suggested that the kidnapping murder was carried out by neighbors upset over Lindbergh's decision to cut off access to his land for hunting. They also suggested that the servants of either estate could have done it. Amandus Hockmuth, an 87-year-old witness, took the stand to say that he saw a man in a green car with a ladder in it pass his house on the night of the kidnapping/murder, heading towards the Lindbergh estate, and the man glared at him from the car as he passed.
In a green car?
Green car.
Okay.
When asked if the man that glared at you was in the courtroom, he said yes and pointed to Hauptmann. And when he did, a power failure knocked out the lights in the courtroom. The defense argued that it was, quote, the Lord's wrath over a lying witness. John Condon, who spent most of the time with Cemetery John, which was the guy's nickname that was the kidnapper's representative, Cemetery John, noticed that he had a fleshy lump on his left thumb. Hauptmann does not. Famed profiler John Douglas, after researching the case, believes that Hauptmann is indeed guilty, but had a yet-to-be-known accomplice. This led to a book in 2012 by Robert Zorn called Cemetery John, the Undiscovered Mastermind of the Lindbergh Kidnapping, to speculate that another German immigrant named John Knoll was the guy. Photographs of Knoll show a physical resemblance to police sketches, and he indeed had a prominent lump on his thumb. The fact that the latter had a large gap between the rungs, that one person may not have been able to navigate that, and then less than a third of the money from the ransom was ever found, let alone the money found in Hauptmann's garage, led the author to conclude that they worked together. Zorn was also alleged to use modern handwriting analysis that determined with 95% probability that Knoll was the author of the ransom notes. So that's where the 1932 examination said that Hauptmann was the guy that obviously wrote it. They went back with a different handwriting guy, and he said with 95% probability using computers that Knoll was the author of the ransom notes. Knoll also took a flight to Germany immediately after the jury's verdict in the case against Hauptmann. Knoll, who was a deli worker, was able to book round-trip vacations with his wife, first class, on luxury liners. Knoll died in 1980, never being questioned by authorities.
Wow.
So now we have another deli worker, or I should say lower-paying job, that was able to
Taking
take all these
luxury
trips
vacations.
first class. The money found in Hauptmann's garage was wrapped in newspapers from 1934 and not from 1932 when the ransom happened. Does this support Hauptmann's claim that he also only recently found the money?
That makes sense.
Kind of does.
Yeah.
Was there inside help, which is another theory? That day of the kidnapping was the first time the Lindberghs were at home on a Tuesday. The house was still being worked on, and they usually only stayed there on weekends and spent time at Anne's parents during the weekdays. Did the servants conspire? The defense at trial suggested that the Lindberghs did not vet his servants and therefore has no idea of their backgrounds. Betty Gow, the maid, was questioned, and the defense intimated that she ran with a group of notorious Detroit criminals called the Purple Gang, which doesn't sound like a very,
Very tough.
bad ASS name, and demanded that she should say if she knew them. Gow actually fainted after getting off the witness stand. Did Violet Sharp, the servant who killed herself, knowingly or unknowingly give information to a friend or acquaintance about the Lindberghs, and they used that for the kidnapping?
That's possible. Maybe she felt guilty about that.
The last theory. Any ideas?
What is it?
Did Lindbergh do it himself?
No.
There is some circumstantial evidence against Lindbergh in the death of his son, which is actually kind of spooky. Just like the man himself, every biography of Lindbergh treats him like a god, and today he's still revered as a great American hero. But what did he really do to deserve it? A Lindbergh quote after his historic flight proves some unsettling insight. Quote, "There were times in the airplane where it seemed I had escaped mortality to look down on the earth like a god." Unquote.
Wow.
He was just an average bush pilot who beat the competition across the Atlantic for that $25,000 prize. Years later, a friend of his wife, Anne's, was quoted as saying, "If he hadn't made that flight, he'd be running a gas station in Minnesota."
Oh, wow.
Before marrying the middle daughter of Ambassador Dwight Morrow in 1929, he first courted Anne's older sister, Elizabeth, but dumped her for Anne within several months.
Oh, no.
Ooh.
Also during this time, the youngest Morrow sister, Constance, received a letter threatening to abduct and kill her unless $50,000 was paid and placed in a specifically made box in a cemetery. An
Sounds
eerie
familiar.
harbinger of the kidnapper's ransom demanded in 1932, and the perpetrator of this earlier threat was never identified. After he was born, baby Charlie was immediately put on a special diet. The child had a larger head than normal, and he showed other symptoms indicative of rickets. Rumors that something was seriously wrong with the world's most famous baby would never subside. Lindbergh was a fan of eugenics. Eugenics is trying to improve the human species by mating people with specific desirable hereditary traits. It aims to reduce human suffering by breeding out disease, disabilities, and whatever characteristics a person desires. Although eugenics is mostly associated with
The Nazis?
the Nazis and Adolf Hitler, In World War II, it was extremely popular in America in the first half of the 20th century as well. After a kidnapping threat against their second child, the Lindberghs moved to Europe in 1936, and the Germans and Lindbergh both had a mutual respect for each other over the eugenics thing. In 1938, Lindbergh was awarded the Service Cross of the German Eagle by Hermann Göring on behalf of Adolf Hitler. Lindbergh also had contacts in the Nazi foreign ministry. Within the last several years, DNA evidence has proven that Lindbergh fathered 7 out-of-wedlock children born by 3 different mothers in Germany in the late 50s.
In addition to the 6 he had with...
Yes.
Wow.
Under the alias Kory Konecny, he swore the families to secrecy before dying in 1974, and in 2003, most of the children came forward. Lindbergh's words, both in speeches and his letters and journals, suggest that he was both a white supremacist and an anti-Semite.
Wow.
Gosh.
In 1939, he wrote in Reader's Digest, quote, "We can have peace and security only so long as we band together to preserve the most priceless possession, our inheritance of European blood.
Oh, no.
Only so long as we guard ourselves against attack by foreign armies with dilution by the foreign races."
Wow.
I have never heard any of this before.
Yep. And here are some other weird coincidences about the case to wrap it up. Only Charles, Ann, and their 3 servants and some servants at the Morrow Mansion in Englewood, New Jersey knew that the family would be staying at the Hopewell House on a Tuesday night. And only after Lindbergh decided that they would remain there past Sunday for the first time ever. Lindbergh was supposed to give a speech at NYU, New York University, that night, but canceled it without notifying them. Lindbergh phoned from NYU to home to state that no one, quote, should ever enter the nursery between 8 and 10 because he doesn't want his baby coddled.
That's very suspicious.
Why did the kidnappers enter the house knowing that at least 5 adults were awake instead of waiting till after they were asleep? How did they know which window the baby's room was? He had his son cremated immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, his wife never even had a chance to see the baby before he was cremated. He told Anne he heard sound of wood snapping from outside, yet Anne and the 3 servants said later they heard nothing that night, and the normally alert family watchdog called Wagoosh did not bark. When Betty Gall found the empty crib at 10 p.m., both she and Anne assumed Lindbergh had taken the child as a practical joke, as he had done several weeks before by hiding him in a closet and making everybody in the house go look for him.
What the heck?
Wow.
This guy was twisted.
When Lindbergh saw the empty crib, he announced, "And they have stolen our baby," even before searching the house for the toddler. Lindbergh had planted the seed that his son had been kidnapped. Anne and the servants searched the house, starting in the nursery, and none of them saw the ransom note on the windowsill, yet Lindbergh discovered after returning to the nursery alone.
Like it was in his pocket the whole time, maybe?
Possibly. Some handwriting experts will later agree that this first note was different than the other 13 ransom notes, suggesting it was written under duress and in an attempt to disguise the writing. Lindbergh put himself in charge of the investigation, insisting that the New Jersey State Police turn over all their information to him. At one point, he threatened to shoot any officer who violated this order.
Oh, jeez.
When Hoover sent 2 FBI agents to assist with the investigation, Lindbergh turned them away, refusing help from the one agency whose experience and training gave them the best chance to return his son. Lindbergh shunned the FBI, yet invited numerous cranks, tipsters, mediums, and gangsters to help, while blocking every logical police procedure which might have yielded useful information. Lindbergh replaced solid investigative procedure with his amateur methods, obscuring the trail, creating false leads, and taking action designed to create deceptive clues. And finally, Lindbergh rejected an NYPD plan to stake out the ransom drop at the cemetery.
That one I can kind of understand because, like they say, no police involved, and if you do involve any police, we'll kill. So that one I can understand him not wanting the police there.
So there's one aside, but I'll save that for after we talk.
Okay.
Is this all suggesting that the motivation behind him orchestrating the whole thing is that he felt this child was inferior and wanted to be rid of him?
Yes, there are podcasts, there are websites, there are blogs about people saying that he tried to trade, quote unquote, trade his son for what would have been considered a less sickly, more, I guess, eugenics-friendly son, and
Wow.
that this was what the plan was, that he was to be taken, he would be traded off for a baby resembling him as close as possible that was of, like, a quote-unquote better stock, and then that's what the thought process was. But when the baby fell or was accidentally killed, the whole plan kind of went awry. So the eugenics thing is something that they really kind of harp on in a lot of these alternate theories, but people forget just kind of how popular it actually was in the early part of the century, and it makes it seem like it's like the worst thing in the world because it involves the Nazis and Hitler, but it really was fairly popular, and I think they're just trying to tie all these. I mean, my opinion is that Hauptmann did it, and you can't. As to what happened to like the other third of the money, I have absolutely no idea.
The thing is, though, like if Lindbergh did it himself or whatever, who was the guy in the cemetery? I mean, who was?
And that's the thing. There's different opinions on whether it was Hauptmann, if it was the other person that was with Hauptmann, if it was that Knoll, John Knoll and Hauptmann worked together, and when Knoll left, he took the other third of the money. Was there 3 people and they all split the third? You know, and I couldn't find anything to see if any of the gold notes had ever reappeared since then. It seems like kind of like the D.B. Cooper money. It just never reappears.
There's some sketchy stuff with Lindbergh, though.
Yeah, really sketchy.
Yeah, and that's
Weird
the biggest thing is that
coincidences.
Yeah.
people
Like
either
the-
say
But
it was,
I could
But
understand.
don't go in the baby's room between this time and this time,
Yeah.
which is when he was taken. That's really suspicious.
But I could understand one of the servants being at the bar and saying, "Oh, they're going to be here this Tuesday,"
Right.
And then maybe she realized she'd probably
Completely
told,
innocent.
She probably told the kidnapper that they'd be there, and she felt guilty, so she drank the silver polish.
Wow.
You know, my personal feeling is that Hauptmann and somebody else were working together, or 3 people were working together. I don't
Or
think
maybe he hired them to do it for him.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's possible.
But why wouldn't they give him up when the police were on them then?
you know,
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure they would have.
one thing too is that like they really tried to pressure him to confess. They were willing to commute a sentence to life, and they were going to
Who
even
is this? Hauptmann?
Hauptmann,
Hauptmann,
yeah, they
okay.
gave him a lot of chances.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he would have
He could have ratted him out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he could have done a lot, and he could have. I think there was either a suggestion that they were willing to give his wife some money to continue on because he obviously wasn't be able to provide for the family.
Sure.
That even he wouldn't do that. So yeah, it's just enough information and enough evidence to make you think that Lindbergh could do it.
You know, but then that's kind of reminds me of John Benet Ramsey, where some people think the parents did it or the brother did it, and they just try to cover it up by staging it as a
A kidnapping.
kidnapping.
Yeah, that's one of the things with things nowadays is once you're out there as
Yeah.
the person that did it, it's hard to reel that back in. Once you're named as a suspect or under suspicion, it's so hard to lose that tag. And then
Yeah.
with all the blogs and Reddit
These
posts, all
days,
these,
yeah, Reddit,
these days, it's
podcasts.
yeah, it's just crazy. So I'm just going to say I got a lot of this from obviously the Wikipedia entry on the Lindbergh kidnapping. There's a great write-up on famoustrials.com. There was some information on the FBI.gov, and a lot of the anti-Hauptmann, pro-Lindbergh evidence is on crimetraveler.org. And then again, I listened to several podcasts, and I watched a Nova documentary on YouTube called Who Killed Lindbergh's Baby?
Wow.
So the interesting aside, do you have any idea what that would be about the Lindbergh baby? It is a very popular Mandela effect.
Really?
Yes, I did not know that.
Really?
I did not know that either.
Yep,
No.
it is a very popular Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is that the authorities never found the baby, and that no one ever knew what happened to him.
You know what? Now that you say that, I was actually, yeah. That's what, if you had asked me before all this, did they ever find the baby? I would have said no. That's funny.
I would think I remember them finding the baby.
The alternate version is that the baby was found, and although there's stories of it being male and female, that the baby lived and was returned, but it always been questioned about being the real baby.
Oh.
So those are the two
I feel
popular
like I've heard that
Mandela
too.
effects.
Yeah.
That's weird.
That's interesting.
Yeah, all of a sudden it just started popping up on Reddit when I was typing in Lindbergh baby stuff, and it's just threads and threads about people thinking that, what are you talking about? The baby was found alive. No, it wasn't.
Weird.
Yeah.
So
That's really weird.
that is it for me.
Wow.
Cool.
Well, that was great.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. It's
Yeah.
interesting. There's some things that tie into what I'm going to be talking about too. Just themes, but wow, that was great.
I don't remember what I was reading or where I was looking, but it was talking about presentism, which is like something that we run into that Kory actually talked about, where you, like something that happened in the past, you can only conceptualize it in today's society, like our norms and stuff. Like Kory was talking about the eugenics.
Yeah.
You know,
okay,
like
I see what you
presentism
mean.
is something, I don't remember where I was just reading this, but it was like an article about presentism, how hard it is for us to put ourselves in the place
It seems
of the mindset
so-
of the past, like the eugenics. And
Yeah.
that was,
That's
you know,
what a
I
lot
talked about, I think, William Shockley in one of our podcasts, and he was like a Nobel Prize winner, but he was also like big with eugenics, that back then it wasn't seen as such a bad thing. But now looking back at Lindbergh being into that, it seems like a horrible
Seems
thing.
sinister.
Yeah.
I think it's the context, though. I mean, you're either looking at it from the point of view of trying to get rid of disease,
Yeah, weed out differences.
not perpetuate a specific race.
Yeah.
The Nazis
Yeah.
were using it for one
Yes,
specific thing.
When you kill off an entire race,
Right. Millions of people.
yeah, versus like gene splicing, where you're trying to add some of the best
Yeah.
qualities or take
Yeah,
away
or take away disease, like
is
make them more
different.
resistant to
Yeah,
diseases and stuff.
It's a night and day difference between killing entire populations
Yeah.
of people versus
Right.
genetically
Modifying,
altering
yep.
things.
Or food.
Yeah.
Like trying to
Yeah.
make corn more nutritious and
It's
higher
impossible
yields.
for people to think that weren't born or around in
Yeah.
the 30s, like just how popular he was. Like there were ticker tape parades for him.
Wow.
There was a song made for him.
Wow.
And that, you know, all these things,
I'm
trying
sure-
to push yourself back into the 30s.
And I'm sure at the time there was nobody that suspected him of doing it.
Oh, no, like I
That's
said,
just like a
he-
recent thing. Like people at the time would never have suspected because he
Yeah.
was an idol.
And then they didn't know until after he died that he'd fathered, you know, all these other children. In
Yeah, but that
Germany.
doesn't necessarily make him.
No.
It points him in a bad light, and that
Yeah.
he's
It
not
does,
he's
yeah.
not a like quote unquote god like he or they
Yeah.
thought he was.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. Wow. Eye opening for sure. All right. Should I jump into my
Jump right into
on
yours.
That note? So I'm going to be revisiting Elisa Lam. So a couple of notes on this. My updates are based on the Netflix series. It's called Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. I know someone posted about this on the Facebook page like a while ago, but I don't recall like what the feedback was. I think it was mostly just people were excited to watch it. But it got pretty bad reviews, and it wasn't that the information or that it wasn't factual, and we'll get to that stuff, but it was just they focused too much on conspiracy theories and sensationalizing the whole thing. They didn't focus on her family and what they went through. They focused on her a little bit, but it was still more about, you know, the YouTube
The video of her
web
being
sleuths
weird in the
and-
elevator.
Yeah.
and-
So a lot of people were kind of upset about that, but I also think on the same, what am I trying to say? Kind of just on that same path, the documentary is also what people really wanted to see. The people who are really into the conspiracy theories or thought the video was of her in the elevator was really bizarre and mysterious. They wanted something to break all that down. So I think it, you know, depending on what you were looking for with this documentary, you probably either loved it or hated it. I'm somewhere in the middle, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it was bad. I don't regret watching it. I feel like I actually learned a lot from it that we didn't know before. What did you
Yeah,
think?
I mean, I actually watched it twice. I watched it when it first came out, and then I watched it maybe a week ago. And, you know, for me, the way it plays out is the first episode is leading up to her missing and the police view kind of it. And then the second episode, I believe, is more of the, here's what we have of the video and here's what we make of the video. And then the third is kind of all the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And I think the fourth kind of wraps it all up saying that,
Okay, here's what really
yeah,
happened.
here's why we shouldn't take into account all these conspiracy theories.
Right.
Here's how it really happened. And
Yeah.
then they kind of wrap it up. And I was the same way. I watched it. I was like, okay, it's fine. It's similar to like The Making a Murderer, where it's they add a lot and
Yeah.
there's a lot of like stuff that they could have avoided putting in.
Sure,
But
yeah.
I think they wanted to make it like a
well-rounded
mini series
or like a
several episode thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after I went and watched it, I went on to Reddit. Specifically, it's like my vice, I guess.
Was it comparable to that Maura Murray documentary that came out?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
comparable. Like
Okay.
in the Maura Murray one, they had the guys going into
They
the
went
woods.
into all the different. They went through the different scenarios that she
Yeah.
was.
They
that
went
she
into
went
the
off
woods
on
and they
her
were
own.
followed. And this
Yeah.
one, they
Okay.
went into the YouTube thing. They
Okay.
went into the metal singer.
Yeah,
That they
I'm
think
going to talk
somehow-
about that.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you're even
No, I don't
aware
even
of
know.
that.
I've heard something about a metal singer being
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah, but I mean, I did feel that when I went on Reddit, it was predominantly negative, saying that they shouldn't have had the YouTube personalities on there. Like, why are they on there?
But I think it's an important
It
part of
is.
the story, and
could-
so
it-
I'm glad they went into that.
because it shows you just how much people get involved into older missing stories or older unsolved mysteries or kidnappings
And
or
the
stories.
negative outcome of that.
Yeah, and what it can actually lead to.
Yeah,
if you start
exactly.
naming people that are not part of it.
Exactly. So I'm going to do a quick recap of the story, but I'm not going to go into all the details. Listen to, I think it was like episode 4 or 5 of our very first season. We go through everything, all the details. I don't want to rehash all that, but so if you don't know the story, though, I wanted to give you a quick recap. So in February of 2013, Elisa Lam, she's a 21-year-old student, took a trip to California to kind of like find some motivation. She was kind of stuck and wanted to experience something new. She was from Canada and she made the trip alone. She stayed at the Stay on Main, which was the hotel's attempt at sort of rebranding itself and separating from the shady history of the Cecil Hotel, which is basically on Skid Row and
Yeah.
not a nice place.
No, it has a history.
A bad history. Lots of serial killers
Richard
have stayed
Ramirez.
there. People were murdered there, like left and right, suicides. I mean, it is not a good place. So she had no idea what she was getting into when she went there. Anyway, the day she was supposed to leave and return home, her parents didn't hear from her and reported her missing. So a search ensues. Unfortunately, the investigators never checked the water tanks because it wasn't until weeks later that her body was found in one of the water tanks on the roof by a hotel employee. His name was Santiago Lopez. After residents and guests complained of dark, foul-tasting water, which is just horrifying.
Nasty.
But the real draw of the case was the elevator video. If you haven't seen it, just Google Elisa Lam. You'll probably find thousands of links referring to the video.
We talked about that quite a bit in our episode.
We kind of
way
really
back.
we
when.
really kind of broke the video down. But it's basically Elisa acting very strangely, making odd arm and hand gestures, and just generally acting odd. The doors to the elevators don't close no matter how many buttons she pushes. And nobody else is seen in the video. Eventually, she leaves the elevator and walks off camera to the left. So at the end of our episode, my God.
Our episode.
You can tell I don't do this often. At the end of our episode, we're teetering between, it was just a tragic accident and somebody had to be involved because things just don't add up. So where do you still stand on this? Not really knowing anything about the Netflix series.
Not knowing anything about the Netflix series, I think was an accident.
Okay.
I agree. It was
Okay.
completely an accident.
Yep. So here are the kind of key players in the documentary. I'm not going to go through everybody, but the hotel manager, I'm not even going to say her name because I didn't like her. I basically hated her through the
See, and
whole
that's
thing.
also one of the things on Reddit. Like, people discounted her because they simply didn't like her. Like, they seemed like she was
I didn't
conceited.
discount her. I just don't like her.
Yeah, and that was a
I
big
think
thing.
she gave really good information, actually.
Yeah.
I just thought she was really sort of like, she didn't seem to care or have any sympathy for the situation. She cared about the hotel and nothing else.
But it sucks
she
how
did provide
it
good
sucks
information.
how you're perceived on their.
If you
Kim
saw
has
it,
such
though,
feedback.
you wouldn't like her either. She was just very smug
She was.
and sort of like, well, if the hotel's great. She was on her own. It wasn't our fault. It was very much that way. She just had no empathy or sympathy for the situation. Even when she said she did, she clearly didn't. Dr. Judy Ho, she's a clinical forensic neuropsychologist who was just like a consulting person for the documentary. I don't think she was involved in the case. Tim Marcia, they don't really say their names. They just give you
Yeah.
the name on the
So
screen.
he was a police officer?
Yeah, he was a LAPD homicide detective who I believe is retired now, but he worked on the case. He was the detective on the case. And then there was a Greg Kading who was also LAPD homicide, but I didn't get the impression he worked on the case. I think because he would refer to them and what they found, and it wasn't we.
I think if I remember correctly, which I could be wrong, I think that after the case was over, he was one of the ones that would revisit it if people
Okay.
brought up information.
Gotcha. And then Dr. Jason Tavor was the forensic pathologist or the coroner, medical examiner. Whatever. I think they go by several names. So I'm just going to go through a bunch of bullet points of things that we talked about and what I've learned since. And I know people are probably going to be like, it's a documentary, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. But in my opinion, the homicide detective who worked on the case, the, medical examiner who examined her body, I'm going to believe them more than anything else I find on the internet.
I think that's one thing that I remember reading was that if you eliminate the video itself and just go with the facts, it's completely
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were oddly focused on the fact that she was wearing men's shorts. We really go on and on.
Yeah,
about
we
this.
do.
And as I'm thinking about it, that's not that weird. Like,
no, it's not.
Men's clothes are generally big on you, and my favorite lounge clothes to hang out in are gym's clothes. Like, this is not weird at all. I don't think it meant she was having sex with anyone. Like, these are the theories we were throwing out, and I just think we focused on it too much, and now I don't really know why. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So we wondered what the odd behavior was that caused the hotel to move her from the shared room to her own room. We didn't have that information then. So what was happening is she was leaving handwritten notes on her roommates' beds that said, get out, go home, and go away. And she would also lock them out of the room and make them use a password to get in.
Oh, wow.
So weird, right?
Yeah.
So, and the timeline of when this stuff was happening was kind of strange. I think they moved her, it was her last night that they moved her out of the shared room to her own room, but she went into the lobby, I think that night, and kind of did like this thing and said, I'm crazy.
Okay, so
but so was LA. So, yeah, so she
had
was
issues.
acting very weird. She also went to a live audience production. I don't recall them saying what it was.
I don't either.
But she was acting really erratically during it, and she wrote this long, rambling letter and demanded that they give it to the host. And so security was worried about her, and they actually escorted her off the property because they thought she was some kind of a security risk.
Yeah, I just looked at it like she was in the live audience of, like, say, like Wheel of Fortune or
Right.
The Price is Right
Yeah.
or like a talk show.
Right.
That's what I got.
That's what I got from it too, but they didn't say what the show was. And I thought, I only revisited the last episode last night because that's where they gave all this good information. But was there something about a bookstore too?
Yeah, there was a pretty popular bookstore. They actually went to it, and then they interviewed, I believe, one of the owners or the owner, and just asked like if they remember what she was doing. And then they went and looked at, I don't know,
Surveillance
videos, and then like possibly the books that she had checked out.
But there wasn't anything weird about the bookstore. It's just that she was there.
No, I want to say that somebody had a conversation with her, but it was super brief, and they didn't really strike it as anything more than usual.
She
I mean, if
seemed
you look
upbeat.
at a bookstore, you're probably more likely not to have a couple weird people come through. Not to disparage people that like to read books or anything, but I mean, it's a popular place.
Yeah, it is. So. Yeah, I agree. Okay. So in the middle of the episode, we were talking about, or somewhere in the episode, the toxicology report and how the levels of meds in her system were the right dosage. But the forensic pathologist, Dr. Tavor, and I think even Dr. Hope both said that her levels were actually too low. They were really low. And that when they looked at the police report that detailed what was left in her hotel room, the amounts of pills that were in the bottles were not what they should have been. Based on the fill date, they think that she stopped taking her medication. And her sister and her family confirmed that that's a pattern. In the past, she stopped taking her medication, and that would result in erratic behavior, hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, and fear that somebody was after her, and that she had to be hospitalized at least once. So Dr. Ho said, based on all of this information, it appeared that she had bipolar 1, which is the more severe bipolar, and that patients can sometimes have what she called psychotic features. And Elisa was on an antipsychotic medication. So if she wasn't taking that, I mean, obviously there could be some pretty dire consequences.
I mean, like, obviously I'm not bipolar, but I'm diabetic. So when I am a little bit higher than normal, I feel no different whatsoever. When I'm low, it's a complete different feeling.
Really?
It's
like
I've only
mental,
been,
your mental state.
Yeah,
even
you're
changes?
confused. You're kind of talking a little bit differently. I've only been low once or twice, and I hate it. I know some people that are diabetic as well, and I've been on some websites, and when I was, told, I think I've only been diabetic for like 5 years or whatever. But when I was going through my initial like counseling sessions, they kind of help you to fill in on how your life's going to change a little bit with diet and medicine. That I've heard some stories of people being low, but not super low, that just have hallucinations, that talk to themselves, We actually had an incident at our job where a guy went low, and he was in a bathroom stall, and he was just kind of doing some weird stuff.
Yeah, I have friends that have diabetes pretty bad, and when one of them I know in particular goes low, it can be very bad and very uncharacteristic of her.
Yeah, and then if somebody were to know you were diabetic and gave you your medicine, your dosage would go back up.
Drastically.
So, and I'm not trying to compare, obviously,
No, but
bipolar to being diabetic,
Yeah.
but there is some similarities.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just how your mental state can change if you're not monitoring your meds, right? So the elevator video. Yes, it's really odd, but all of it is actually pretty explainable.
She's not possessed.
No, she's not possessed. Particularly the part about the doors never closing. We talk about that a lot. And it wasn't in the episode I watched last night, but Jim and he watched the whole thing with me, and he remembers this, so I'm hoping you can confirm. Didn't they analyze the video close enough to know that she pushed the door open button?
Yeah. She kept pushing the door open button as one of her. Was it the people were talking about it being the elevator game or whatever it was?
I don't know that she was playing that, though. I think it's the Korean or something.
Yeah.
Elevator game where you hit certain buttons and you're supposed to not get off on this floor, and if a woman gets on, you're not supposed to talk to her.
Talk to her. Yeah.
I believe in the documentary they zoomed in on her pressing the door open button quite a bit.
I need to watch this documentary.
Yeah, it is really good. I mean, I thought it was really revealing. It answered a lot of my questions. But I think they even talked about how they tested it, and that when you hit that button, it's programmed to stay open for a specific amount of time.
Yeah, that's a lot longer than you would think.
Yeah, it's a lot longer.
And it just completely be a guess, but I want to say they thought it was like 40 seconds.
Yeah, it's a long time. And if she hit it a couple times, it lined up. It was consistent with what we saw in the video, because the doors do eventually close after she walks away. But so we were very like, oh, something creepy's going on here, and it's just that she hit the door open.
We were young back then.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing: this is all that was available to us at the time.
But it did
what
seem
was on
creepy
the internet.
and off.
Right. So so what Dr. Ho said watching that video, she said this is clearly someone who's hallucinating, someone who's paranoid, and she's hiding. I mean, she doesn't look fearful. That's the weird thing, I thought.
No, and hiding could be what she was doing in the water, trying to do in that tank.
Well, we'll get to that.
Wow.
It's getting curted.
So much curting happening today. I mean, she said she could have been hearing voices, and when someone with this type of illness stops taking their meds, the chance of an episode increases dramatically. So she had stopped taking her meds a few days prior to that. The erratic behavior leading up to this and the kind of culmination of it in the elevator really makes a lot of sense. The detective, Marcia, addresses the notion that the video was tampered with or edited in some way. And he stated pretty simply that they have the original hard copy in their possession. There's nothing wrong with it. The hotel did not edit the video, and what we're seeing that looks edited was done by media outlets. It's the only explanation.
That's understandable. I mean, that happens.
But the hotel didn't do it, and neither did the police. What would their motivation be? So back to what Dr. Host was saying about someone who's in the middle of a psychotic episode. If she felt she was in danger, like if she's hallucinating and thinks someone's messing with her when she's in the elevator, that could spark sort of this fear that someone's, out to get her. And she said she could have literally been at that point, like running for her life, looking for a place to hide. And the medical examiner or the forensic pathologist said it would make sense to someone in that state to do something like hide in a water tank. Who would find you there? Yeah. So here's what he kind of thinks happened to her. She climbed up into the water tank. She became trapped when she was inside, and her only option at that point was to tread water because the water level was too low.
You couldn't get back out.
Right. He felt that she either undressed to make treading water easier because clothes are going to impede your ability to stay afloat. But he also said that if the water temperature dropped enough, she could have become hypothermic. Yeah. And we all know what people do when they're
paradoxical undressing.
Yes, they take their clothes off. But she did ultimately drown. Something people fixated on was the fact that her body was found face up. Usually drowning victims are found face down with their arms and feet kind of dangling below them. But he said it's really consistent to think that if the water level was constantly changing, it was enough movement in the tank to slowly flip her body over. Yep. So there's really nothing suspicious about that either. There's no evidence of foul play or anything suspicious at the scene, and there was no evidence that she intended to kill herself either. I mean, even though she was depressed and bipolar and possibly manic, there's still, it's not like she took a bunch of pills or anything like that. It really did seem like it was accidental. About the lid. This is like a big point. So they interviewed Santiago Lopez, and we talked a lot about the lid in the episode too. The employee who, and there's a fruit fly buzzing.
I was wondering what you were doing.
I'm hallucinating. The employee who discovered her body was Santiago Lopez. I think he was like a maintenance guy. He states in the interview, he's on the documentary, and then they, of course, zoom into something that looks like this that's highlighted with his statement that clearly says when he climbed the tank, he found the lid open.
Okay. That answers a lot then.
Unfortunately, what happened is an officer giving a press conference, and they flashed to it, he misspoke. And he even says something to the effect of, I believe I've been informed that the lid was closed.
Yeah.
And that's all it took.
Yeah. And then it's officially
the media ran with
closed.
it.
Yeah.
Yes. And so this information that it was actually open when they found it never came out. Yep. And that one detail led everyone to believe that someone else had to be involved because one person misspoke about that one detail. And it's funny because one of the web sleuths was like at the end, he's like, that was the clincher. That was the thing that convinced me finally. Yeah. Okay. So the web sleuths, the people who quote unquote became captivated by the case, we mentioned at this time, like 4 years ago, how people were really drawn in by it, especially the video. But what I didn't realize until I watched this series is the obsession that people had over this. Like people spent hundreds of hours investigating this case on their own from their, living rooms. I was just kind of shocked at that people basically spent all of their free time
kind
looking
like Maura
into
Murray.
this case.
I mean, it's a lot like Maura Murray.
Yeah.
And, there were people that drove specifically to the Cecil Hotel just to do a walkthrough, just to say that they were here.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And of course, everybody knows this. It's very common for key information to be withheld from the public during an investigation because obviously, if there was foul play involved, you wouldn't want that information.
That's what a lot of people are. I was just, I read about the Delphi case where those two girls were killed. Those two young girls that they have the audio, the picture and the audio, and people are mad that there's not releasing more of the audio or more of. Because apparently where the girls were found, it was like in some kind of scene that was like, I don't want to say ritualistic, but they were placed, their corpses were placed a specific way, and people want to know. But then you also don't want the people to know because you want to know because only the one that's going to know that is the killer.
Yeah,
right.
If somebody admits to being the killer, they'll be like, well, how were they posed? And if he
and
says they were posed face down when the police know that they were posed
But you also
like
want
up.
to know, so it's like...
Everybody wants to know every individual detail about the crime, but you can't.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's what happens in these situations is that people, thousands of people, are trying to solve a case based on probably only a third of the true information.
Yeah.
And that can lead down some pretty unfortunate paths.
YouTubers can easily... what's the word
influence people,
sensationalize it in order to get hits,
right? And people will believe them.
If
this guy's got 100,000 views, well, he must be saying things that are true. Can't put anything on the internet that's not true.
Well, like even with my Lindbergh story, some of that stuff about Lindbergh, I was like, I'm only getting this from one source. Like I need to find it from other sources. And that's when I started finding it from several sources. It's like, all right, I can't just go ahead with one guy in a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So what's unfortunate about this is that, and it reminded me of the nanny or the housekeeper that killed themselves. So there's another victim in the case, and this man is named Pablo Vergara. He's a black metal musician who went by the stage name of Morbid. You can imagine dark lyrics, like really morbid, like videos, references to murder and death and the devil. But this is like a persona he puts on, right? So a video was found of him online staying at the Cecil Hotel. And I don't recall what kind of reference he made to killing someone, but it was sort of like something, I don't know if it was part of a music video or something about he might have quote unquote killed someone, but it was very offhanded and very non-specific and probably just part of his image that he's creating for himself. Well, people saw that and immediately decided he murdered Elisa Lam. So 6 days after her body was discovered, A friend texted him and was like, you need to look at this. And he was on some Asian news show being called the murderer of Elisa Lam. And he's never even heard of this woman before. So people all over the world start messaging him, accusing him of murdering her, death threats every day. And the clincher is he stayed at the Cecil Hotel in February of 2012. She wasn't there until 2013. Yep. So he wasn't even in the country when this happened. He was actually in Mexico. He has passport stamps proving he's from Mexico. That's where he lives. He has passport stamps proving he was there. He was a true musician. He had a record deal with a record company that was recording with him. That's what he was doing during that time, and he has contracts to prove that he was there. The FBI of Mexico, called the PGR, questioned him, and no charges were ever filed. And at the end, the detective on the case was like, yeah, I get it. People want to help, but this guy wasn't involved. And they basically...
No, and those... when you're shown like that.
Yeah.
This is a way more lighthearted example of that, but I go back to... and Kory's the one that got me to watch this, and I still think it's one of the most brilliant things I watched, and that's American Vandal. Like the first season of American Vandal. Watch it. If you have not seen it, watch it and ignore what I'm going to say because there's spoilers, but it's like a spoof of Making a Murderer, where there's this high school boy that's believed that he spray painted penises on all the teachers' cars, and a guy like films this documentary that thinks he didn't do it to try to get him, so it's a lot
clear his name. Yeah.
And at the end, you find out he didn't do it, but then he ends up doing something just like that. And then they ask him why he did it, and they show when he is sitting towards the end of the series, sitting with all his friends from school, watching the documentary they made about him, and watching all of these people say, no, the guy's an idiot. Of course he did it. Like they're interviewing his classmates. Mm-hmm. And at the end he says, well, that's what people believe I am. Why shouldn't I be
fulfill
that?
their, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it shows that like when you get out there as being the guy, you can't shake that.
Yeah, exactly. So this poor guy was actually driven to try to kill himself because of the harassment that he was suffering, and he ended up in a hospital. And he hasn't... this is like 7 years ago now, or how... somebody else do the math. I don't know when this documentary came out, but he hasn't recorded any music since. Like his whole life has completely changed, and even when they...
From something insignificant.
Something... Yeah, totally. People just read into it and they wanted someone to blame.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they blamed him.
Exactly.
And I think that was the frustrating part about the documentary for me, but I think it was an important piece is all of these people on the internet trying to solve the case. There was one guy, and he was a prominent one that they kept showing throughout. They were interviewing him, but they would show clips of their videos that they had been posting all this time about the case. And he says something about how he's so upset about the autopsy. And I'm sorry, guys, I've been investigating this for hundreds of hours, and I just have to disagree with the coroner. And I'm thinking, okay, guy in your basement on the internet with no medical degree.
Yeah.
I mean, people just become
and only secondhand evidence and secondhand theories.
Right. All they could find was what was on the internet at the time.
I think, we were talking about that earlier too. Like even like the Maura Murray subreddits that I'm on, they have people that discount quote unquote professionals. I guess not quote unquote, they're actually professionals.
Right.
And they're saying, well, they must be wrong, whether it's a doctor or an attorney
or
the police.
Yeah.
And it's like you have these people that do this as their job. No offense to anybody that does this, but if you're just observing the case from the outside, you're not a professional in anything. If you work as a nurse, that doesn't give you the expertise to try to be, well, here's how the police should investigate, or here's what they missed.
Pathologist, right.
And they always think that they're smarter than the actual professionals.
In with, we're going to talk about this in a future episode, but the armchair treasure hunt, The Secret, that Kory and I
armchair
follow.
Detectives.
And there's people that are convinced they know where these buried casks are, and they will not listen to anybody else saying no, and like anybody else using evidence to say no, it's not here. They're so convinced it's there, that it's in their spot, that they won't listen to anything else, and that's what's kind of happening with Maura Murray too.
Somebody does post an alternate theory, they get just destroyed by the people. Yeah. And if you're in the minority on where something is or a point of view, the majority just discount you and just beat you down and like, make it difficult for you to even be like, all right, can we just talk about this? You state your facts, I'll state mine. and just they don't care.
No, like Kory and I were talking
Right.
about on the drive down here, like the Maura Murray subreddit is almost not even about Maura Murray anymore. It's all infighting
Drama
between
between-
Renner
Oh,
and
man.
Admins
And
and,
the admin-
Twitter
the admins
fights,
and,
and it's not about the missing girl anymore. It's
No,
about
Right.
yeah.
who's right.
Yeah.
And
Focus is all wrong
Yeah.
now. Well, and that I think that's the whole point that I'm glad the documentary kind of covered those people, even though people didn't like that part of it. It's a real kind of message to people that look at what they destroyed this guy's life for nothing. And I understand.
But conversely, like look at the Kristen Smart thing, where this
Yeah.
guy did this podcast, and now the son and the dad are in jail that they are pretty sure did it. So sometimes getting that stuff out there helps,
Yeah.
but sometimes it ruins lives.
Right.
I
I just think there's a fine line between wanting to help and misinformation
Yeah.
and accusing people that you have no information about and refusing to believe the facts that are right in front of you, even though you're not involved in it and you have no professional training whatsoever. Like, I just think it's just a dangerous scenario and there's a fine line. And I think what this boiled down to is that people just became so invested in it. They wanted someone to hold accountable and they couldn't accept the fact that the only person accountable was Elisa.
Yeah.
They can't accept it
Yeah.
because now nobody can be held accountable or be put in jail for it.
Yeah, they had that one YouTuber who started crying because he felt like he knew her
Oh my gosh.
and like they never met. And
No.
then like I know
he
a lot
had
of the
someone take a video of themselves putting their hand on her headstone for him because
Yeah.
he couldn't do it himself. I'm like, wow, dude,
And
let
I
it go.
get it when you're invested 100 hours into something, you think you're a quote unquote expert on it. But when you get emotionally involved
Yes.
and not looking at it subjectively, that's when that stuff. And like even for Morbid, he never got an apology.
Right. Never.
He never got anybody
Nope.
ever said anything or reached out to him. I think maybe one person may have reached out and said, "Hey, I'm sorry I brought your name up," but he didn't get any kind of apologies or any
Right.
kind of sorry. We pretty much ruined your life for the last while. And
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. So we do mention in the episode, hey, I think they're making a movie about this. I didn't realize it, but that movie that I texted you, I think last week, and I'm like, yeah, don't watch this. It's stupid. It's called Followed. It's a found footage movie that it's basically, they don't say they're at the Cecil.
Oh.
They change the names of everything, but there's an Asian woman who went into an elevator and went missing, and that's why they're there. And it's for his blog or something, or his YouTube channel, and he wants to get more. If he gets a certain number of subscribers, he'll get like a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's what the goal is behind it. And it's not that scary. It's really kind of hokey. It's overproduced. It doesn't feel like a found footage film.
Yeah.
It feels like a movie that was made to look like a found footage film. So that's the movie we're referring to that I didn't even know I unwittingly watched.
But
And
a lot of
I
these
don't
YouTube
recommend
channels,
it.
like looking into this, are monetized where
Mm-hmm.
the more hits they get, the more money they get. So the more
Yeah.
lurid they're
More
going to be and more
sensationalized.
sensational they're going to be with the stuff.
Spreading
yeah,
misinformation.
there is one of the YouTubers that was on the Elisa Lam one that I do follow. He was like an older guy who got into it. He does a good job. I can't remember his name for the life of me now, but he was an older guy and he was on it, and he was one of the better ones that didn't jump on things right away. But even some of his other, he follows a case or whatever and tries to investigate it. And he even admits that he kind of gets into it and then he has to take himself out of it, and then he'll do another one. He'll kind of get into it. So he's constantly doing that, but it's a pretty popular YouTuber, and he does like all the popular ones and even some less popular ones.
Is he the one that at the end was like the biggest honor we can pay to her is to just accept the truth of what happened
Yes.
and leave it alone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but people aren't going to.
No, people
know,
are
like-
going to refuse to believe
Yeah.
it no matter what.
So basically, yeah, that's what
I mean,
think.
do we do that in our podcast? Do we?
I don't think so. I think
I'd like to
explore
think we
all
don't.
sides.
That we don't.
I think
you
we're
know.
more skeptical of everything that we cover, and at
But
the
I
end,
seem to. I wish I could listen to our Elisa Lam episode, because did we sensationalize her
Oh, I don't think so.
saying she might have been possessed, or
I think we talk about the theories,
yeah?
and we leaned more towards this stuff doesn't add up. Someone had to have been involved.
Yeah.
We were like,
But
there's
we were-
nothing
we were-
paranormal about
yeah,
this.
but I think we were going off.
But we were going off of the half information that
Yeah.
was out there at the time. I
But I
think
think-
we're pretty good about.
Well, I mean, this
not
episode
settling
also
on
shows that you guys are willing to go back.
Yes.
It's not like you do a podcast and then forget about it.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys do go back and and reanalyze
I feel
and
like-
change it a little bit to be like, okay, here's what the facts are now.
I feel like we need
Right.
to do that more. We need to go back and talk about Maura Murray again with,
Well, that's what I
Yeah.
always said, you guys.
with a better timeline.
That doesn't involve a recipe for a steak burrito.
I think we've talked about that too, where you guys should go back periodically and like, here's any updates from
Because, yeah.
season 1, and just have a whole podcast based
Yeah.
on, all right, here's some of the things. Episode 1, nothing is new. Episode 2, here's some things that have
Oh,
changed.
that's a good idea.
Episode 3, here's some new things.
Yeah.
I mean,
that could
some
be
of
like
them
a
might
good
not have
season finale, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically it sounds like she stopped taking her medication.
Mm-hmm.
She started going into a manic or hallucinogenic state,
Mm-hmm.
started seeing things. I think they made a thing in the documentary that there's no way she went through that door. So she went through a window and up the stairs or the escalator.
That was a question we had is how could she have gotten to a fire escape? They're at the end of like every hall.
Okay.
So she
Yeah,
didn't have
so
to
not
go
that
through a
difficult,
room.
Yeah. So she
They're
climbed up the
accessible
fire
to
escape.
everyone. Yes.
saw it at tank, and maybe she thought, people are watching, and she went in and couldn't get out. Yeah, it's, I say again, pretty cut and dry.
It is
Yeah.
pretty cut and dry. So that's where I land. It was a tragic accident. Nobody else
I
was
agree.
involved.
I didn't even
Do
see
I
it.
think maybe they could have done a better job of, hey, this woman doesn't seem stable. Should we check on her? That
Yeah,
was
but
something
that's
they kind of
always-
talk about.
That's always easier looking back.
But also, this is a hotel that's full of people who probably aren't very stable.
Yeah.
So how do you zero in on one
Who's
person
gonna-
and,
yeah.
and give them attention?
I do
don't
think
know.
that was something the hotel manager said, was that
Yes.
it's not her responsibility to question the sanity of every
right.
Which
person
it
that
isn't,
comes through.
because
True.
you
And
know,
most of the floors at that hotel are for permanent residents,
Yeah.
and it's people who are wandering around Skid Row. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not this couple of floors at this stay on Main was made trendy and kind of modern and sort of nice, but I mean, the rest of the floors aren't so nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it. I mean, she's an adult.
Yeah, when you're sitting at staying a night at a trendy hotel, you don't expect the floor above you to be full of vagrants and Skid Row
Right.
people walking in and out. And
There's probably, sex trade going on there. There's probably all kinds of drugs happening. And, maybe if she had been staying at a nicer place, somebody would have questioned her medical state and looked into it. But because of where she was staying,
they're used
that
to-
probably played into
yeah,
it.
Yep, I agree.
It's sad. It's very sad. But I don't think there's anything
no
mysterious
foul play.
or paranormal or conspiracy
I can
anything.
I can get on that train with you guys. I
Yeah.
totally agree with that.
All right.
Wow. Okay.
Hour and 47 minutes. Not bad.
Oh, we got to really zoom through our songs.
Oh, yeah, we do have songs.
Yeah.
You couldn't find any questions,
No,
right?
our question site that QOH isn't working. So I'm
Yeah.
going to see if I can get that working at home. So we're going to skip questions this week.
Okay.
We're just going to jump into our song.
I'm going to skip the jokes, too.
Okay, our song thing for this week was a song that gives you hope.
Kurt could use that right now.
Yes, I could. And this is one of my go-to songs. I'll go first.
Okay.
And because Kory was wondering if we would have the same one, and I said I'd be really surprised because mine isn't one that you would think, maybe.
see, mine's not one either.
Mine's
but-
a country song.
But
So.
mine and this, I don't know, like I talked about how years ago I got into running, and that's when I started liking dancey kind of music, something that would give me like motivation to run. And one of my go-to songs when I'm down and when I need a song that gives me hope is the song "Don't You Worry, Child" by Swedish House Mafia.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a really good song.
It is a really
yeah.
good song, and a lot of it is the video. Like the video shows. I've never been to a rave or an EDM concert
Whatever.
ever, nor would I probably ever go to one.
We know you got glow
But this is
sticks.
just like it's a good like song, and then like halfway through the song, it kicks in with like a ravey, and it shows
Techno
like the
beat.
crowd. It shows everybody happy, and it just makes me happy. And I think it's a really uplifting song. But my song is "Don't You Worry, Child" by Swedish House Mafia.
I
Yeah, like
think I
the-
actually know that one.
Yeah, like the "Don't You Worry, Child" part is like a gospelish.
Yeah,
it's
like
kind of sung
almost.
by like almost like rhythm and bluesish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm picturing the right song.
I'm making sure I'm calling it the right. Yeah, "Don't You Worry, Child" by Swedish House Mafia, and I'll post a video. But I love that song, and when I was running, that was like one of my songs, and like that was the first song that popped into my head for a song that gives me hope.
Nice.
See, mine's the same. The first song that popped in my head is a song from the 60s, and it's not what I don't think it would be considered something that you would give you hope, but it does for me. and that's the Byrds with Turn, Turn, Turn.
Oh, that's a great song.
That is not one that I would have thought you would have picked.
And every time it comes on, I believe it's Bible verses just sung.
It kind of is, yeah.
I don't know if it's like
Ecclesiastes. Yeah, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes.
No, it is. It's biblical.
Yeah.
I know that.
And it's just it talks about all these different things. Like if this doesn't work, wait a little bit.
Yeah.
And
that's
Or
good.
there's a time for everything.
That was the first
for some
thing
reason, I thought you were going to do my second pick would have been that "Ooh Child" by the Five Stair Steps,
that's a good song.
which is a good
Things
hopeful
are gonna
song.
get easier.
Yeah, so that was my second pick, and I kind of thought that's what you were going to pick.
Oh, the second song that came to mind was "Never Too Late" by it's going to bother me now. 3 Days Grace.
I don't even know if I know that one.
You can listen to it on the way home.
Okay,
But if anybody's out there, that was my second one. So the Byrds, Turn, Turn, Turn. And
I
then
think we're going to have
3 Days Grace.
We're
Never
we're going to have quite the variation here. We got
Yeah.
Swedish House Mafia,
Going
the
with a country
Byrds,
song.
and Krista is.
country.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't listen to country music, but somehow I must have stumbled across this song at work. Sometimes they have XM radio on or whatever, or Sirius XM. And I think sometimes they have the country station on.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves is people that think country music is something different than it is. There's a lot of really good country music, and it's
Yeah, I can
these
get into
days
some of
especially it's like borderline rock.
Pop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I can get behind Zach Brown and Kelsey Ballerini. I kind of like her stuff
Like
too.
I love Lady Antebellum. Or Lady
called
A
Lady
now.
A now.
Yeah. I don't know what
So the artist this song is by Casey Musgraves.
Yeah.
I think that's right. And the song is called Rainbow. And the song, I don't really like the video. I watched the video and it's just, I don't know. The video is too distracting from the song to me, but the song is basically like you're going through a rough time. You've got your umbrella. You think a storm is always over you, but really there's a rainbow that's been there the whole time and you just don't know that it's there and that the clouds are going to break and things are going to be okay.
I feel like I might have heard this song.
It's a really pretty song.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very pretty. So I'll post that on the
Wow,
the
that's
Facebook
quite the
page, too.
quite the mixture.
We'll have everybody in a good mood after
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, there's really nothing that stands out. Like when you think of a song about hope, like that was just the first songs that came to my mind. I don't know if
had
there
a
is.
bunch pop in my head. Like another one of my all-time favorite songs, even though it's kind of a cheesy song, is that it's by Sean Mullins, Lullaby.
Oh, when Krista mentioned
yeah, that
country,
is a good song.
too, I thought she was going to go with
I saw him at Summerfest once.
We'll put
Leanne Womack. I Hope You Dance.
I Hope You Dance.
I
I
thought
Hope You
that's where
Dance
you
is
were
good.
going.
Yeah, that would never come to my mind. Yeah. That's old, right?
That's older.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like 90s country, I think.
Yeah. Huh, those were
Yeah,
good
it's
picks.
weird.
I
Yeah.
was-
Good time.
Pretty much hit every genre there
Yeah.
except for like
we did.
jazz.
Except like death metal.
Yeah.
I thought that you were going to come with something metal.
Well, that's why the 3 Days Grace is the only thing in my wheelhouse that, I mean, it's more of a like alt rock or whatever, but there's really.
Well, there's a song by I can't think of their name now. I'm just totally blanking on it. They sing I shouldn't have even said it because now it's going to drive me nuts. I can't think of the band's name, but they have a song that's kind of like a "Things Will Be All Right" kind of song, and this is going to drive me nuts because I can't think of the name of
Maybe
the
it
band.
is that 3 Days Grace. That
It's
you're
not
thinking
3
of.
Days Grace. It's I can't
what are
think of
some
it.
of the words?
I don't know. It's
This
like
is
sing it.
titillating
I can't
for our
I can't
listeners.
because I can't even think of the song. I can't think of the band's name. And I can't think of how the song goes. But it was like one of those not new metal, but one of those songs from like a couple of years ago. But it was just like a upbeat kind of song that it was like kind of don't give up. Better days are coming. So there are songs out there like that. But that was the first one that popped in my head. Like I like Swedish House Mafia.
No, I get it.
I'm not going to be doing an EDM concert anytime soon, but
I
it
have
makes
been
me
to a
happy.
few raves, though.
It makes me happy to see people happy.
Yeah.
I think.
People are generally really happy at raves. I can tell you that.
Yeah, you can.
It may be fueled by
You
drugs.
and your tea, whatever that tea was, ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah, ayahuasca. I've never taken ayahuasca, okay?
Is that it for
I think
today?
that's it. We're at an hour and 53 minutes.
Perfect.
Well, glad I could help.
We could do one joke.
Okay. I'm going to do the laugh out loud
Okay.
jokes because they're way funnier. What did the bride say when she dropped her bouquet?
Whoops.
You're close. Whoopsie daisies.
Oh.
Hold on. This deserves a thanks, Coleman, for these sound effects.
I don't even have my stuff up to do the deets. I don't have I can't do the deets. So
Okay.
email us at thestrangesessions@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at Strange Session without the S. Krista
Instagram.
does an awesome job on Instagram at
The Strange Sessions.
The Strange Sessions. Our phone number, I don't know off the top of my head, but we have gotten a couple voicemails lately, so we really, really appreciate those.
That's
I'm going to
awesome.
play those in our next episode, our catch-up episode, and our P.O. Box is 434. I don't remember. Oh, it's just going to be The Strange Sessions, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, Post Office Box 434. I don't remember the zip code. Oh, I can look at my phone.
I'll just give a shout out to the Strange Seller. It's been a
baby.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Shout
Very
out to the
exciting to have our first guest host here.
shout out to the sound engineers behind the glass, the social media team.
They came all the way from the school to do
5-person
this.
social media team sitting over there.
And yeah, if you want to join our Facebook group, The Strangers, feel free. Send a request. You have to answer some questions, but
and don't just answer yes for all of them.
Don't
like
say
we've
yes
been,
for all 3 questions.
Yeah, because that's not the right
That's
answer.
a decline.
That's a Strange Sessions, P.O. Box 434, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, 54221-0434.
How important is that last 4 digits of the
I don't
zip
know.
code?
Like, I wonder if you just sent it to
apart,
5.
It breaks apart districts in Manitowoc.
But if
from
somebody
my
just sent
understanding.
it to 54220,
It would
It
still
would
get
still
there.
get there.
Yeah.
I've never used the last 4 digits
don't
on
either.
anything I've
but
ever
the
mailed.
post office people would probably be mad and probably
I
step
think it
on
helps
it.
them sort based on where it's
Stop
where
on the
it is.
boxes that don't have it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think
good
that's
times.
it from the Strange Seller. So Kory, thank you. Kory likes to do his one episode a season.
Yeah.
That's what he likes to do.
You and Jamie, you pop in.
And
once a
Rhonda and
season.
Mark, Devin wants to be on the podcast.
Devin
bad.
and
so
Britt.
so we're gonna have, because
They're starting
spoilers,
a podcast.
they might start their own podcast. So maybe we could.
They want to learn from the pros.
We'll have to see if we can get some in here.
Forget to bring their deets and sometimes don't do taste tests.
we can't get in our questions. I forgot the deets.
We don't have a flash drive.
I'll
find the flash drive, don't worry.
So yeah, we're a hot mess, but somehow we make it work.
And people still like to listen.
So Kory, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Start planning already for your next episode next season.
All right, it gives me enough time now.
Give you enough time. Yeah, but when Kory jumps into something, he does a good job
yeah,
of
he dives
researching it.
in. I mean, he does some good research.
I look on Wikipedia. I'm like, all right, that's enough. I'll make up the rest.
I watch a TV show.
Yeah, at least I didn't have to listen to 5 hours of YouTube videos like I did for the last one.
was
man,
was
that's
that Mel's
commitment.
Hole?
Yeah, that was Mel's
Yeah,
Hole.
Mel's
Hole.
All the coast-to-coast call-ins.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good stuff.
So, from Krista, Kory, and myself in the Strange Cellar, until next time, stay strange.